Paul Cunningham, reporting, and Regina Doherty, what's your sense of the undecided voter? We hear about shy no's, shy yeses, young men, older women. What's your sense of how they're going, who they are?
I think there's still a large number of them, and I think that's displayed by the video piece that you've just shown. There's probably about 20% of the people that are currently polled by different companies are saying that they still don't know whether they're a yes and a no. And I think there's probably a challenge. There's an awful lot of people in the country who genuinely and very emotionally are engaged with the hard cases, the couples that we've all heard of their stories in the last number of weeks in particular, of how we forced them to travel to Liverpool and really, really want to be able to do something for those couples. For young women, the 13-year-old girl who was raped, all of the people who may be, all of the women who are raped in this country or who may become pregnant because of incest, they genuinely do want to do something about those cases, but they're conflicted. But the message, I suppose, from our perspective is that the only way to do something about those cases is to repeal the 8th and then to put in play legislation. There is still a little bit of the way of the argument to go, and I think you've heard that from the people that have just spoken, is that some people don't quite appreciate the situation that women, and there are 3 of them at least a day, who are buying the pills online, taking them in the confines of their own home in lonely situations and in probably somewhat dangerous situations, that the only way that we can regulate that situation is to bring it out of the Constitution and into a GP-led care. And I think people struggle with that. It's kind of an abstract context. There's nobody coming forward and saying and sharing their stories of having taken pills. We're not at that, that's not that emotionally engaged level. But the reality is that there are young, middle-aged and probably older women who are resorting to buying those pills online, and I think that's where we arrived at the 12 weeks, because we couldn't legislate for rape or for incest, and we couldn't legislate for those particular cases without
repealing
the amendment.
bottle, I think was the phrase. And of course, Anne Rabbitte, you were on that committee and you heard all of this evidence, and you would be what many people would call a reluctant no voter, in the sense that you have expressed support for some of the hard cases but not for this provision. So coming from that perspective, what's your sense of the undecideds and what's influencing them in this final weekend?
What I think is coming forward, and what I'm hearing a lot of, Anya, in the last number of days, is people want to see the compassion there on the no side. They want to see the no side saying that they want to show compassion for the hard cases, that nobody would have a monopoly on that compassion. So where I'm coming from is that I'm saying to people, if you were to vote yes, we have to look at the hard cases, that they cannot be left in isolation. We cannot walk away from the hard cases. And that's what I would like to see happen. That's why I would be encouraging people to vote no.
Ronan Mullen, in the earlier conversation, raised the possibility, it seemed to me, of a future different constitutional proposal. Senator McDowell said it wouldn't be possible. Do you think that's a possibility?
I do, actually, Anya, and I believe strongly it is a possibility, because at the end of the day, when I was down in committee, when it came to the voting, we have to remember what the role of the committee was. The role of the committee was to adjudicate what the Citizens' Assembly put before them. And after that, then, when we had all over the 3 months, all the varying views that came before us, we then had to do a voting mechanism. And one of the very first votes was to repeal simplifier, which meant really to make it very simple for the people in this referendum to take it directly out of the Constitution. I would be one of the people that would be saying, vote no, and let's go back and let's decide how we can look after the hard cases. Because I believe we have to.
Speaking to undecided voters, does that not sound reasonable?
Well, of course it does, but the reality is slightly different. So that I go back to in 2013 when we were introducing the Protection of Life During Pregnancy Bill. And Jerry and Gay Edwards were a couple, and they've been very, very to the fore of this particular campaign. They came to us then to beg us, because of their difficult journey and all of the other thousands of couples who've gone to Liverpool or somewhere else in England because of a diagnosis of non-viability outside of the womb. They begged us, they pleaded with us. Claire Daly put amendments down to the Protection of Life During Pregnancy Bill. Constitutionally, it just is not possible to bring forward a law that would allow couples to have, an early delivery with the 8th Amendment in the Constitution. And second of all, the other hard case that we talk about are women who've been raped. And yes, whilst potentially it is possible to put forward a different piece of legislation as they have done in Poland, we see in Poland it just doesn't work. It's totally unworkable. So why would you try and fix something with a solution that doesn't provide the solution at all? Because right back then we're where we are to 1983 when we put the 8th Amendment in to protect the unborn, and we all know that 170,000 women since 1980 have gone to England to have termination. So it hasn't really done what obviously people thought it was going to do at the time, but all it has done is to make sure that there are doctors who can't provide care for women in very, very dangerous situations because of it. And so we need to address all of these issues.
But I want to bring Anne in here, because it seems to me, listening to the two of you, because many of people have been saying, it'll be over next weekend. Will it be over next weekend, Anne Rabbitte?
Absolutely not. I actually only think it's the beginning of it. Next weekend, whatever is the outcome, next weekend, because if the yes are to be successful next weekend, then we're going to have the legislation trying to bring it through the Oireachtas, and that in itself is going to be a huge challenge. If the no were to be successful next weekend, the no can't, and I as a legislator do not want it just to be that's the end of it, parked up there, because I still believe that we have to look after the hard cases.
And I want to, just because again, I'm trying to balance up the time a little bit as well, and Anne's a bit behind. The other thing I want to deal with, because we're all women here, this campaign and women, is it your sense, because it's certainly mine, and I think many other women out there, that there has been, that we have heard conversations from women and amongst women that we haven't heard in any campaign on this issue before? Would you agree, Anne?
Totally agree. People are coming forward, they're feeling that they can share their story. And I think your clip there was very reflective of where the population, how women feel about it. There's some people who won't give an opinion because it's private to themselves. And they're the people that are the reluctant yes or the reluctant no, because they don't want to be criticised, they don't want to be put down. It's very personal and it's a very emotive issue. And a lot of people have experiences, and they're listening to family members.
And a lot of people, I think, within that, with family and friends, again, no matter what their view, not wanting to cause hurt, which isn't always something we've seen from either side necessarily, if you like, in the frontline campaigns.
I think what you've seen is a huge amount of compassion being shown towards women that you wouldn't have maybe had in the 1992 referendum or the 2002 referendum, and particularly not in the 1983 referendum. It's probably been accentuated by the scandal of the cervical check over the last couple of weeks, and then other, I suppose, scandals with regard to the delivery of healthcare during pregnancy or to women, such as symphysiotomy or the Dr. Neary case. Like, they've all been brought up, and we seem to have a litany of treating women poorly with regard to delivery of healthcare in different instances. And actually, I think women have just kind of decided, you know what, we've had enough. And at some point we have to stand up and to say, I am entitled to be treated with dignity in my own country, regardless of the decision. And I mean, I am pro-life. Personally, I'm a pro-life. And that I say that insofar as that I have 4 gorgeous children, but my beliefs have never been tested. And so I don't think it's my place to tell you what your beliefs should be. And I think we've heard that from an awful lot of people, even no voters. And they have their own particular reason why they're no voters, but they genuinely do appreciate that at one stage, in Irish society, we have to treat and deliver healthcare for women with dignity and respect in this country.
I want to ask about another issue that, again, I think there's been a lot of discussion about the posters during this campaign. And again, no matter what side you are on, but for women, because women are the ones who, they are the ones who are having the abortions. They are the ones who are trying to have babies and can't have babies. They are the ones having the miscarriages. They are the ones who may have lost much wanted and much loved babies who died either in the womb or early in childbirth. So that experience of walking around, and I suppose so many women, no matter what their view in terms of their intention to vote, but have those posters hurt, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just women they have hurt. They've also hurt teenagers who express an opinion. There's young adults there. That's not the sort of campaign that they would have thought that this campaign should have been in relation to it. They feel the posters lack compassion. They feel that they're trying to push an agenda and force a choice or force an opinion on people.
And the argument would be that this is the harsh reality, and if you are going to vote on something as important, then you should see the harsh reality, the consequence of your decision.
Absolutely, and I suppose you can see that in some of the posters that are there. And some on the No campaign would say then that the Yes posters then don't go far enough to tell exactly what they are trying to introduce and was about, and they don't use the word abortion on it. But on the other side then, the No campaign posters, to me, some of them are offensive, and I'm a No supporter.
I think Gan hit it in the head. Like, we're talking about having compassion, and even one of the campaigns is called Love Both. Well, the images certainly don't show any respect for women and the decisions that they've made. Mm-hmm. And you can be either conscientiously objecting or vehemently objecting to somebody else's choice, but you don't have to be so emotionally insulting and disingenuous in one hand, and then when you're arguing have absolutely no emotion or compassion or engagement on the other hand.
There's another question I want to ask both of you, again arising about particularly those undecided voters, because in a way they are the key people for the next couple of days. For somebody, and we saw one woman there saying she's not voting, she's staying at home, she just can't make up her mind. Is that a valid thing to do if a voter genuinely can't come to a conclusion they're happy with? Regina?
Well, I suppose it's a personal decision to everybody, but I would encourage anybody who's in that position between now and Friday to try and expose themselves to as much information as they can so as to help them make up their mind. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's somebody's choice. If they choose not to vote because they're afraid to vote either way and they're not 100% comfortable, I totally get that, because, and Anne I think will agree with me, it doesn't really matter your position, because for all of us who've made the position, we voice the position, the first thing that happens is you get slapped down and you get abused and beaten up, and Anne has been abused for being a no, I'm being abused for being a, you know, there has to be respect. And at the beginning of this conversation a couple of months ago, we've all said we hope we have a respectful, dignified, debate. There's nothing, we can have a respectful, dignified debate, and I don't have to be insulting to Anna, nor her to me, or you to us. And we can all have different opinions and have shared, agreements on some things without getting down and dirty and being insulting and disingenuous and disrespectful to women, because that's what we've displayed in the last couple of weeks. And it shows, for me, the generations of misogyny and disrespect that we've had inherent in Irish society, and enough, we have to stop it.
All right. And Anne Rabbitte, what you would say to an undecided voter who may not vote, is that the best, is that a reasonable thing to do if you can't make up your mind?
To me, it's not, because I would love everybody to go out and articulate their viewpoint, either yes or no. That's the first thing, because every vote is valuable on this. And if you're undecided, then if you're undecided in the no camp, what I'm saying to them is we have to address the hard cases, and like we have to. So even if you were to go out and vote no, I think it's putting it back on politicians and on legislators to find a solution. And we have to find that solution for people, because the status quo is no longer acceptable here. And that's what we need to tell people.
And in terms of, how do you feel from the point of view of a no voter, that the polls this weekend seem to be suggesting that the yes is holding its majority? We're going to be talking to Richard Coldwell from Red Sea Polls after the break, so we'll be getting but from your point of view, your reaction.
My point of view in relation to the polls, I never worry about polls, because if you're in my party, you can't worry about polls, particularly this weekend. But saying that, you know what I mean? There's 20% nearly there in the undecided. That's the 20% that are going to come out, and they're going to shift it either way. So we won't really know, Anya, till Saturday morning or Saturday evening on this one.
You've teed up the break really well, because after the break, Richard Coldwell from Red Sea is going to be joining us, talking about his opinion poll, and what all the polls are telling us ahead of the one that matters, your vote next Friday.